The reticular theory versus the neuron doctrine. Modern neuroscience is based on one core building block, the nerve cell. Nerve cells are the basic functional unit of the entire nervous system, both central and peripheral. But we didn't always know that. The discovery of their basic structure marks the beginning of modern neuroscience. Before this discovery, the predominant theory used to describe the structure of the nervous system was the reticular theory. Scientists thought that the nervous system was a complex network of tubes. Based on this theory, they hypothesized, for example, that when the brain wanted to send a signal to a muscle, it would shoot a tiny little animatory spirit down these tubes. That's why muscles bulged when you flexed them, because they were full of these spirits. The reticular theory made sense at the time because back then, the technology that lets us see discrete nerve cells didn't exist yet. When scientists looked at slices of neural tissue under their light microscopes, what they saw was a tangled mess. Neurons are so small that they're hard to see with normal staining techniques, so the junctions between the cells were essentially invisible. According to the reticular theory, there were no junctions, so this made sense to them. This lack of resolution inspired Camillo Golgi, a fairly well-known scientist at the time, to invent a staining technique, which he called Golgi staining. Golgi staining involved fixing neurotissue and then using silver nitrate to turn that tissue black. What's interesting about it is that it only stained a limited number of cells at random, leaving everything else transparent. Golgi staining allowed scientists to not only isolate tracts of neural tissue, but also see finer structures such as axons and dendrites. However, they, including Golgi himself, failed to see these structures as evidence against the reticular theory. It wasn't until an unknown scientist named Santiago Ramón Cajal came along that people started to rethink the reticular theory. Cajal believed that the nervous system was not made of long tubes, but of discrete cells. Cajal took Golgi's staining technique and improved it. This new and improved technique used a procedure called double impregnation.
Whoopsie.
This procedure involved soaking neural tissue in silver nitrate and then repeating this process over again. Repeated staining resulted in a much deeper blackening of neural tissue, allowing for even greater structural resolution. Unlike everyone else at the time, he was able to see that axons ended in gray matter, meaning that the buttons on the ends of the axons conformed to the dendrites nearby. He also noted that the ends of axons were not seamlessly connected to the other neurons, but were separated from dendrites by a very tiny gap. Cajal, who also happened to be a talented artist, was able to draw very anatomically accurate pictures of what he saw. Based on these observations and many more, Cajal eventually developed a theory called the neuron doctrine, which asserts the following. The neuron is the fundamental structural and functional unit of the nervous system. Neurons are discrete cells which are not continuous with other cells. The neuron is composed of three parts, the dendrites, axon, and cell body, and information flows along the neuron in one direction. Cajal's newfangled theory wasn't well received at first. People were skeptical because it contradicted their long-held beliefs. Also, no one knew how these cells would communicate with each other. Because of this, the reticular theory still made more sense to them. However, Cajal didn't let this discourage him. Initially, he published his own journal, but no one read it because it was in Spanish. So, he translated his research into French and German, submitted his works to prestigious scientific journals, and presented at an international conference in Berlin. Once he presented, people started to take him more seriously. Like wildfire, word of the neuron doctrine spread far and quickly. It became so widely accepted that Cajal was awarded a Nobel Prize in 1906, along with Golgi, for their contributions toward understanding the structure of the nervous system. However, Golgi, being the rigid, stubborn old man he was, refused to let go of the reticular theory, and denounced the neuron doctrine during his acceptance speech. It was clear from the speech that Golgi and Cajal did not get along. However, Cajal emerged as the hero at the end. Not only was he right, but he also was more keenly observant, more creative, and more psychologically balanced than Golgi. Cajal left a lasting legacy. Thanks to the neuron doctrine, he is now considered to be the father of modern neuroscience. He has inspired many after him to explore the basic functionality of the brain, building upon the tenets of the neuron doctrine.